Welcome to Feminine Roadmap Podcast. I'm your host, Gina-R-Farrar. Each week, I bring you an inspiring conversation to help you navigate the challenges and changes of midlife so that you can not only survive, but thrive in your second half. Hello, Feminine Roadmappers. It is Gina here, and today we are going to be talking about changing predictable and limiting behaviors, learning how to identify your best qualities. And my guest today wants to inspire you to define what living an extraordinary life means to you. So today I'm going to be speaking with Diane Cashin. She's a transformational coach and the author of Squeeze More Life Out of Time. Manage your mind, energy, and minutes to live an extraordinary life. So without further ado, Diane, thank you so much for saying yes to me.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. This is wonderful. And hello to your entire audience.
It's such a great thing. I have to tell my audience that I get emails and I get pitches for different people. And Diane's PR company actually sent me the book. They didn't reach out via email. So I got this surprise book in my post office box. And I thought, this is a person whose mission and message is so needed in the world. So I reached out and we've booked this today. And as we talk before we hit record, I'm realizing what a serendipitous meeting via my post office box this has turned out to be. We're kindred spirits, and she has an amazing journey to share. So I want to make sure that you sit down with a cup of something wonderful and give yourself the space of this hour to really soak in this message, because I think it's going to make a big difference in your life. So if you're busy being distracted, set that aside and let's get started, Miss Diane. Tell us a little bit about how you came to this mission and this message.
Thank you so much, Gina. And, it's one of these things where I think as we get older, we start looking at life differently. When we're young, it's about us and us, all about me. And then in our middle years, it's about giving it away to children and career and so on. And then you hit this, maybe it's 50, maybe it's 50 plus, but we get to these moments or we get to some news that kind of stops us, right? And we start thinking about mortality and legacy. And we actually ask ourselves, like, am I living a purpose-filled life? Am I doing what potentially I was sent here to do? Or have I just been a human doing, right, versus a human being? And I had, my first book was when I got some health news when I was 50. And I took a year off and I traveled the world and I rode elephants and I slept in jungles and I did all kinds of amazing things because I wanted to live versus just work. But in that same context, I thought, what is my purpose and calling? And it truly is to make a difference in other people's lives so that all humanity feels like they're not trapped in a box conforming to someone else's norms or someone else's measurement. Like, how do you ignite your best and greatest? And how do you live from that place with joy and love and peace every day? Now, my first book was more practical. It was, as a woman, right? I was going to talk to my sisters in the world. I was climbing the corporate ladder, and sometimes it was good and sometimes it wasn't. And sometimes I felt done too, and I'm being blocked. But I actually got really clear on I didn't want to be a victim and I wanted to be responsible. So through all of the investments and all the companies that I had worked with, I created a program while I was at Cisco, which got global recognition by the CEO as one of the best collaboration things that they had done. But it was really to have a very, from love and in service to women, why you're not getting the job. Right? And it's not about the interview. It's about a lot of other things. So let me give you this gift and I love what you said, Gina, grab a cup of something. Because that's kind of what that book was. It was sisterly love to sit down and say, what can we be responsible for? And what do you truly, truly want in your life versus what you're doing in this career trajectory where you might have plateaued or feel stuck or frustrated. So from that place, you can then make really empowered choices, as we hear. So that was the first book. And then I jumped back into corporate America as an executive and a leader. And I do a lot in healthcare information technology. I do a lot with veterans and military healthcare. But then again, life shows up and it presents things to us. And I had become president of a company, and the CEO was an investor who found me and said, I want to produce your vision. And I went. And after a year and a half or so, he just stopped paying me and kept my intellectual property. And I was like, what is that about? Right. And in the midst of that same time frame, my older sister, who I adored, she passed away at the age of 62 after battling cancer. So it was interesting. I had these two really horrific life events happening where my career trajectory, my vision, what I thought my profound difference I was going to make in the world, I bump into, I think it was serendipitous, right? The CEO who's like, I'm going to invest in you and we're going to produce this and he, hurt and harmed me and then kept my intellectual property and hurt me financially. But it didn't matter as much as the fact that I was losing the sister I adored, which put me into action around my second book, which is Squeeze More Life Out of Time. So, it's these moments in life that happen to us, right? What is happening to us doesn't really matter compared to what is happening within us. And the things that are so profound and ignite us are the things about family and friends and life experiences. But yet we spend almost all of our time chasing the almighty dollar and the career. So we're a bit upside down that way. So long introduction for me, but I felt it was important to show you kind of, I too was this career woman. It was about climbing the ladder and helping other women do that. And then here I would be saying, I'm doing it. I'm now president of a company, right? I'm president of a startup. It's happening. And yet it didn't matter. In the end, when my sister passed, I felt called to say, how do I share what it's truly like to live an extraordinary life? And it really comes back to these beautiful moments within yourself, not your career or your title or your money.
Isn't it true? I love when you said we've become human doings and not human beings. I think with the speed and the pace of life as it is, we're always doing. We're never turned off. There's always some kind of a device or some kind of something that's drawing our attention. So we do get caught up in the to-do lists and the doing, and we forget to be mindful. There's this whole movement with mindfulness right now. It's everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a big part of, it doesn't have to be a big production, but just each day taking time to really think about, am I on the track that I want to be on? Because we can't get time back. And I know this midlife conversation about being crunched between our kids and our parents and job transitions and relationship transitions and all of these things, what you're talking about squeezing more life out of time, I think learning to pull those pressures into perspective is what it sounds like you're saying.
It's true. I didn't see it as I was creating even an extraordinary life while I was raising my children. I was wealthy enough. I could travel. I didn't have any financial concerns, right? I could eat really well. I could take vacations. I drove a nice car. I had a beautiful house, but all those things, right? I had no financial worries. And it wasn't until I was about 50 when, the career trajectory changes a bit. And we don't see it coming because we are working hard. We're giving it our best. We are sacrificing self, especially health and well-being, oftentimes to give and give and give, because we want to be on that trajectory. And we do enjoy that lifestyle. And oftentimes, and unfortunately, and too many women that I do coach and know personally, get the message of, it's not personal, it's just business. But now it's time for you to move on. And there's nothing more personal, right? When you've given, 18 hours a day or, and thereabouts to a career, to have them say, we're going in another direction now. So it's hard. And then you have to heal through that wound also. So we know that things are constantly changing, but it always comes back to, and I'll get into this a little bit later, but when you pass, right, who are the people who stand up and do your eulogy? When you're in the hospital, other than the flower basket or card that arrives, who's there? And that's where our priorities in our life need to be. So it needs to be a context of and. We need a career, right? We need money because we live in the United States. We need food, shelter, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We need those things. But are we upside down? Mm. And where is it that our choices for money, vehicles, all those things are creating an unhealthy way of living and a healthy way of being? So we compromise family, friends. But I'll tell you what, when you have a moment, they're the people that are always there. So, the people at work will come and go. But by and large, it's always family and friends.
And how does a person switch over from being a human doing to a human being? How does that transition begin to take place? Because we may think we're doing the being.
Yeah.
What are the kind of the little flags that go, actually, you've gotten off track somewhere? We talked before we hit record that we are mind, body, spirit, right? What are those flags that say, nope, you're no longer aligned?
Right. And one of the things I have been sharing on main stage for a long time is I challenge the order of that. And instead of using spirit, I use soul, right? So it's our soul, our heart, our self, right? When we touch our chest, right? That's where an emotion comes from, right? And when we talk about mind, we can actually physically kind of reach up and touch a brain. Like if we could reach inside our skull, like that's where it physically resides, and we see our physical body. But spirit, I usually reserve for the divine or whatever it is in the universe that you believe that's bigger than you, that kind of created this magnificence that we get to experience every day. But I believe it's soul, mind, body. And the shift comes really when you create this awareness. Now, you mentioned mindfulness earlier. And I think a lot of folks now are realizing, they're either reflecting on the past so much, creating depression and coulda, woulda, shouldas, or they're anticipating what's going to happen, whether it's an hour from now or 5 years from now, health, or, even further out, their own death. You're anticipating the future, and that kind of creates anxiety for you. This beauty of just like being right here, right now with you, Gina, that's living. I'm now having a living moment. I'm creating a memory with you, and this will forever change my life and hopefully the lives of all of your listeners. The awareness is the difference. When you become aware of something that maybe you're in an automatic way of being, right? And while our soul craves love, peace, joy every day, our head tells us through the stories and the journey, you're not good enough, right enough, smart enough, thin enough. You're not connected enough, and not enough, not enough, not enough. Be afraid. And so I switched the order on purpose because every morning, if you know truly what it is you want to create, and I do share all of this in the book, right? The book is a framework. It is a place for you to go look for yourself, make notes, make your own changes. No one needs to be told what to do, how to do it. The answers lie within you. What you need is the conversation, right? For you to go take a look. So each morning, I believe as you open your eyes, that's kind of miraculous in and of itself, right? That we close our eyes every night, we get some rest and we restore, and then boof, our eyes open. So that in and of itself is a miracle. But the very first, I call it the hour of power, but I'm going to go right down to the first 5 minutes, Gina. When you asked about how is it we shift from being a human doing to a human being, it's really taking 5 breaths, right? Just to wake yourself up, right? Through oxygen, give it to your body and to your mind. But to say, this is who I need to be today, right? Not what I need to do today, who I need to be. I need to be courage, positivity. I need to be levity. I need to be joy. I need to be patient. Who do you need to be today so that you can get closer to the things you want, deserve, crave, need in your life? What is your true north? What is it you're supposed to be doing each day instead of just jumping out of bed, grabbing coffee and hitting your calendar or your Facebook page or whatever other social media platform. So it's just pause 5 minutes. 5 minutes is all it takes. And you take 5 breaths. You celebrate the fact that life really is extraordinary. You set an intention for today. Today, I need to be courage. And then in support of your intention, what are like 3 things only you can do to live the life that you truly want? Now, of course, having a list of what you want in your life, from love of self, love of partner, love of family and friends, your health, your income, your career, where you want to live, what your relationship to spirituality is, your dreams, your adventures, your goals, or maybe something philanthropic. When you think of yourself in a 360-degree view of a whole person, when you wake up in the morning and you say, my intention today is persistence or confidence, and you look at those things around you, what 3 things can only you do to move your life, just even if it's a tiny baby step forward into that direction, to go get it? Nobody's going to do it for you, right? And it has to be shifting from your soul will tell you what it is you truly want and why you should go create that. When you live with your soul guiding your mind will quiet and your fears will lessen. And from that place, quite honestly, your mind really doesn't know fact from fiction. It's oftentimes in an automatic state, right? But if you can guide it and say, hey, today I'm going to be confident and I am going to talk to Gina, right, on today's podcast, and that's one thing I'm going to create so I can make a difference in the world, then all your energy, your mind then focuses your energy, and then guess what? Your body gets into action to go create it. So if you just let your mind run in its automatic fear, not good enough context, your body will get into action that way too. But what if we just disrupted it and we said, just take a moment. You set the tone for the day. You set what your mind focuses on. You determine what your actions are going to be, and then go create that love, peace, joy that you deserve, and go live that life, that extraordinary life that you really, really want, versus, oh my goodness, what does my boss need? What do the kids need? What does school need? Right? You're constantly in the to-do list of
Tyranny of the urgent. That tyranny.
I love that. Tyranny of the urgent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, as women, we're so used to doing all things and being all things for all people. Mm-hmm. I think one of the greatest shifts that we can make is adding ourselves into the conversation.
Isn't it quite I always look at it like an upside down pyramid, right? Mm-hmm. You're at the tip of this very precarious thing you're trying to balance, but yet you're the thing you source the least, right? Health, nutrition, sleep, because you're giving it away, right? You're making sure that your children have what they need, your spouse has what they need. And somewhere you say to yourself, yes, and I'm going to take care of myself. Maybe I'll get a mani-pedi, or I'll get to a spa, or get a massage. And oftentimes they come too far in between. But what if it was the other way around? If you were the wide base of taking care of self, you're going to have so much more to give to everyone else. But it's very difficult, and almost all of the women I coach or work with have a really difficult time when I challenge them, or I should say invite them, to take a look at what would an ideal day look like for you, from health and spirituality and rest and nutrition. Like, what would that really truly look like? And then how do we enable everyone else around you to be a little more self-sufficient perhaps, or to maybe deprioritize some of these other items, right? Does everything really, really need to get done? And does it always have to be an A++? Can some things get a C so that you can rest, or maybe you can go to the gym, or you can go for a swim, or you can have a conversation with a friend? What is it that you need for self-love and self-care? And then from that, you may feel, more fulfilled on your career, more fulfilled as a spouse, more fulfilled as a mother, more, and so on. Mm-hmm. But if we get depleted, which almost every woman I know does, that's the invitation. You can disrupt this process, but will you? Will you do it?
Profound. You can, but will you? And what is it that we all say we want more from our time? We have all of these focuses on time management, which everybody says you can't manage time. Time happens. It's how you live your life in the moments, right? So we focus on this existential idea of managing time when the idea that you're bringing to the forefront is the life that's happening within the time. It's not so much about the time as it is about the life that's being lived within it.
It's true. But we do know time is finite, right? Minutes click away and we never get them back. That's it. What you and I started at the beginning of this, it's gone forever. So it is finite, but it's not scarce. So the question is, what are we doing with those precious seconds, minutes, hours? And everything becomes a choice, right? If you choose to take a nap, there's nothing bad about that. And you don't have to be afraid, like I'm losing an hour or two because I took a nap. No, if you need to take a nap, you need to do that. But it's more of when you think about where I like the term time, energy, and emotional leaks. Maybe it is too much television. Maybe it's being caught into too much drama. Maybe it's the collective environment we're in right now that creates a heaviness upon our heart. Whatever it is that we see, we have a choice to say, is that really where I want to invest that minute, that 15 minutes of time? And is it in service to me? Now, I'm not saying become an ostrich. Take a look at the news, get sourced, be a connected person in the world. But part of it is, how do you clear that out to say, wow, I just read some really toxic stuff. And again, part of it is just taking 5 deep breaths and say, wow, that was pretty crappy, right? That really is upsetting. And the upsetment, Gina, will come even more when it conflicts with what your purpose is, right? So there's little baby red buttons and there's big red buttons that get pushed. And when you understand when you're angriest about things, there's a pretty direct correlation that's going up against your purpose. It's not just some life story or something that happened to you that like, oh, that makes me angry. But when you notice your anger getting really high, just stop for a moment and say, wow, why is that making me particularly angry? And understand that it may very well be in direct conflict with your purpose why your soul is even here on this planet, right? So that's something for people to look at. But when I'm coaching my clients who go through toxic, hard conversations every hour on the business day, I invite them to leave their meetings like 10 minutes early, right? And this does get to time, right? I don't want to say time management. It's the respect and reverence of time. It is the preciousness of time and what you do with how you are aware of it and how you leverage, right? It so that it serves you. So for example, if you have a phone call in a work environment and it's 30 minutes long, I invite people to drop off 5 minutes early. Just tell them right up front, I got to jump off at 25 minutes after the hour. And it gives you a moment to clear up and let go of whatever happened in that last. Being present to that 25 minutes, take the next 5 minutes, be present to whatever actions you need to do, any scheduling, follow up, clean it up, right? Wrap it up, take a breath, let it go. Pick up for the next meeting. Similarly, if it's an hour long call, let them know it's 50 minutes. If somebody can't communicate what they need or drive through the initiative within 50 minutes, right, there's another conversation to be had. But and I'll even take it to the next level. You can contact a lot of friends. Remember, I'm all about family and friends, but you can manage the time. It can be a 5, 10, 15-minute conversation, right? Full of yumminess. But if we're spending a lot of time in the sucky drama, we lose those minutes and we never get them back. And did that serve us well, right? Because now it probably took our energy down to this place of kind of, it feels icky. Now I got to clear that out. So the whole process of, setting that intention for the day, knowing where you're going, what you're going to be completely unstoppable doing, those 3 things. Well, in the midst of that day, we're not robots, right? Things are going to happen and we should take time to be relevant and connected and relate to other people. But we have to be mindful, like here comes their energy into our space and we can love them up and be supportive and be with them. But how do we make sure any of the ick doesn't stay with us? And we have to shrug it off and we have to let it go at, every half hour, every hour, you can decide. But that's part of the intent of, being clear and present and letting go of what happened and moving forward to the next thing and being present to that.
I can see how that's one of the ways that you can squeeze more life out of time, because you are living it in chunks instead of just being like run over by life, right? One of my virtual mentors, he talks about transitions between tasks, which is what you're saying. It's taking that time to finish the business. You could write down things that maybe you can't quite wrap up now, but you can come back to it, and preparing your mind for the next thing so that you can be present and more effective in your relationships and everything else. And he's also very relationship oriented. So as you're talking, I just went to an event of his. So I'm like processing how these are success principles, and I'm not necessarily talking to you, Diane, because clearly you understand them, but to my audience, that when we hear someone share their life and they've lived a life that's been on purpose and intentional and successful for them, there's clues that successful people leave behind. And one of the consistent clues that successful people leave behind is this idea of chunking your time and owning it and transitioning from one thing to the other. That is a consistent success principle. So if we're looking to manage our mind and our energy, right, then we have to manage our mind and our energy.
That's right.
Captain Obvious moment there, right? If we're going to manage our mind and energy, then we have to have the courage to say, this is my boundary. I can do this for 20 minutes, an hour, whatever we decide it is. And then we have to be courageous enough to say, and this is where it ends right now for me, so that I can live the life and have the experiences and the conversations and the moments that are going to build the life that I intend.
And what I love about what you said, and the visual that drew to mind, Gina, was the fact that when we're having a conversation, especially with somebody we love, we jump onto the court with them, right? We're in the game. We're like, oh, no, he didn't. Oh, what? Oh, that is, right? We go right into the sucky drama because we love them and we get attached. We get attached to the outcome. So what happens, though, is when we're attached, we're invested. And that's normally something we can't control. So I usually invite people to invite like this beautiful pair of scissors, right? When you're done the conversation, just like take your scissors out, snip it. You're no longer attached to that. You can take a breath. You can send them love and wishes and send them a prayer, whatever works for you. Like, I'm thinking of you. I'm sending it your way. But you now have to detach and take that breath and reset, right? Clear it all out and say, I can't carry that with me even for the next 1 hour, right? So clear it and move forward. And it's the same thing. You know, I know I use some business contexts there, right? And I know you have a lot of entrepreneurs, and that, right? One phone call can lead to the next, and that can weigh really heavy on entrepreneurs. Like, how am I going to do it all? And then you're overwhelmed and you feel like you just want to go home and crawl into bed. And then we get to the highs, right? You know, there's the lows, and then there's the high where something good happens that day and you just want to pop champagne. But it's more about that midpoint of life. And also, you know, living that extraordinary life in the hardest parts too, right? Mm-hmm. So it's personal relationships, it's business relationships, it's managing all the 360-degree views of you. But what are the things you need to detach from, right? What can you let go of that isn't even yours? Right? Somehow you attach yourself to somebody else's stuff because you care. So how do you detach from that? And it was one of the things I had to learn the most in my life was, you know, I'm an empath and I care so much. I'm feeling everybody's pain. So I had to learn that, like, let it go. They've got this, and you can be love and support to them, but come back to being present to you in your life, what you can control, what you can do to make a difference, what you can move forward.
So I hear you saying that you understand yourself. You're an empath. Mm-hmm. And an empath has a tendency to feel what the people they care about feel to a greater degree, maybe even than the person who's having the feelings. Right. It's a very intense emotional experience. So I think there has to be a clarity around what you can and cannot do
Mm-hmm.
in order to accomplish that extraordinary life. In
Mm-hmm.
other words, if you have a friend or a situation that when you get into it,
Mm-hmm.
you just feel like someone pulled the plug in the bathtub and you just feel all of the energy drain out of you.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that person or situation is bad. It might, but we do as women need to figure out where our boundaries are,
Mm-hmm.
you know, with time, with energy, with some relationships. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that's what I hear you saying. Like, you know yourself as an empath. So I'm sure you have instinctively created certain boundaries with certain people.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you know you're in a lower cycle energetically for whatever
Mm-hmm.
reason, you know, maybe you've gone through something with your health, maybe it's a hormonal cycle, whatever, the boundary there, if you want that life that's extraordinary, you have to protect in that season.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to kind of cocoon a little and recognize maybe a hour conversation with this person is beyond my ability.
Right.
What do I need the
And
energy for?
yeah, and also when am I being that person where I'm calling a friend, right? And I'm unloading all my stuff onto them, and then they feel like they need to protect, share, advise, consult, wrap me in a safe place,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I'm my human condition, right? And it's okay, we're humans, it's going to happen. But part of that is what can I get responsible for there too? And I'll share, there's a kind of a flow that I use, and I think it's a really good recipe we can all use. It's not hard, right? It's really just has four simple steps, if you will. And this will happen all day long, right? Whether you're deciding whether to have a salad or a burger for lunch, or whether you have gotten into some sucky drama with somebody, or maybe you were angry or unkind. Like, you can just use this flow all day long. So the first thing is just notice who you're being, right? So from this place of noticing who you're being, what you would want to do then is saying, is that the best place to come from? Am I being my best and greatest? So when you think about, all these moments in your life all day long, when you notice something show up, maybe you're not being your best and greatest, which is our goal, right? We should be love, peace, joy, kindness, compassion. That's when we are our best and greatest. But we switch, right? Sometimes we become snarky, condescending, judgmental, right? You can think of the negative list as well. But when you just pause for a moment and notice, who am I being right now? Am I being my best and greatest? Why am I in this place? What am I feeling, right? What's really showing up for me? You can keep going, right? You can just stay in that space. It's a choice. But if you realize that behavior is not serving you anymore, you're just visualize yourself standing at a fork in the road. I can keep doing the automatic thing, but now that I'm kind of aware, so I've noticed something, I get to make a choice. The choice is, what's the most ideal thing I can do right now? So that's step number 2. What's the most ideal choice I can make for myself? And the old automatic you, right, will show up one way. But the new you that wants to be your best and greatest will maybe make another choice. And that takes you to step number 3, which is, okay, you're going to practice. Don't expect to get it right out of the gate. When we were kids and we were learning to write the alphabet or sing a song or learn our ABCs, we made a lot of mistakes. But as adults, somehow we just expect a switch to get thrown and it should be instantaneous. I tried it once and it should work. So what I'm inviting you for step 3 is just do something different than you automatically would. Anything. Now, ideally, you can play the game of it's opposite day, right? I'm just going to do the opposite of that.
I love it.
So if you have kids, you know what I mean, right? It's opposite day. So let's say normally you might take to bed and pull the cover over your head. Well, maybe you just, the opposite of that might be stay out, maybe take a shower or sing a song, right? Think of something opposite, whatever works for you. Practice something different. And then the fourth part is surround yourself with a team of people that you can tell what you're trying to do differently. Let's say you have a goal, and I'll share one of my goals. I would like to be a main stage speaker, right? So I notice right now that a lot of times I get afraid about that, right? When I'm in the midst of creating my action plan and setting my intentions and getting into action to do 3 things each day, I get afraid. And I'm like, what's that really about? Well, I could take to bed or grab a glass of wine or just stop completely. I could turn the TV on and avoid whatever my automatic thing might be. But because I'm aware, I can choose to say, well, what's one thing I can do right now? What would be one ideal little choice that I could do? Maybe it is phone my coach. And then from there, I might practice something. I might write a piece of this talk. And then if I still need love and support, I then might say to my friend or my coach, I'm going to send this to you. I'm going to tag in people that care about me. So it's really four simple steps. Notice who you're being. Make the ideal choice for you that moves you forward into your in your life and toward your goals. Practice something new, right? And then if you really feel stuck, tag somebody in who loves you, who wants you to be successful, and let them rally you forward.
It's so important to have that community. This conversation comes up almost every time I talk with someone. Knowing how to choose a healthy community for yourself and being that healthy community for someone else.
Right.
Yeah, asking for help as a woman is a challenge sometimes, isn't it?
See, that's a beautiful segue, because right there in and of itself, that could be a little baby goal, life goal for under self-love, right? Maybe that could be one of the things you practice right now is, how do I get comfortable with asking for help, and asking for help for the things I truly want and need in my life, right? We get one spin on this magnificent marble. And again, using my sister Adana, who was the inspiration to write the second book, she was extraordinary all the time. And I wanted to be her my whole life. And we all know that that's not realistic and that's wrong, right? I needed to be me. But at the same time, she passed away at 62. So if we get one spin on this marble and we know there are things that we want, don't be afraid to ask, right? Gina, you're so spot on. Tell people what you're excited about. Ask them for love and support. Say, I might need somebody to hold me accountable. I might need somebody when I'm afraid to create a safe space for me. I might need you as an expert to give me guidance and help me get unstuck. But I also need teams to celebrate with, right? And they can be baby celebrations when I just get one little small thing done, little increments. And then when we have big ones, it's a different form of celebration. But you should have this whole team with you, and they can be different people depending upon what you want to create, right? Different teams for different things. But think of the gift you get there too. Through this process, now you're staying in touch with more of the people who are your family and friends who are loving and supporting you. But in the laws of reciprocity, you now get to love and support them. And that intimacy, relationship, connection gets even stronger, right? Because you asked and you shared.
I feel like, I have daughters, and this conversation is so relevant for even younger women, learning to use your voice. If you want to live an extraordinary life, there's a part of us that needs to learn to use our voice. Not just asking for help, but putting out into the world what is important to us and honoring that journey for however it's going to look and whatever kind of responses. I was just talking to my daughter last night. She's working through a difficult situation. And I kept saying, what is it that feels right to you? What is it, as you're saying this or writing this out, what is it that resonates with you? I might say it differently, and you might not feel right about how it's worded. These are suggestions, but as women, learning to feel good about and trusting our own intuition and our sense of who we are, and allowing ourselves to be defined by who we think we are versus what maybe other people say we are. And I know that's something that's part of your message as well, is that, are you living your life or the life someone has defined for you? And if you have, for some reason, fallen into that, I'm living the life that, my mom wanted me to be a this and I wanted to be a that or whatever. Midlife is that wonderful season of really stopping and going, wait a minute. No matter what we've done in the past, we can use it as information to put us on a better or right or more aligned path. Or maybe we've just changed and what was aligned is no longer aligned, right? That extraordinary life is it's an ebb and a flow, and it's not a straight process, is it?
No, and I love what you're saying, and especially with your daughter. I hope she's doing okay. And this ebbs and flows of life. I kind of use the metaphor of we are on a journey, right? And the detours are sometimes when we see the coolest thing, right? We get off the highway and right, it's going 55, 65, 7 miles an hour. And all of a sudden we got a detour and we get off and we see local shops and local artisans and a beautiful view. You never know, but you still somewhat know you're heading to this destination. You're just going to take a different path. And then sometimes it may be a very circuitous path because it gets really, really complicated. And I think maybe I can share with you that, I published the book, right? It was finished last April. But I asked the publisher, I said, give me 2 weeks to get my website and everything else in order before you can go get like gangbusters. And then, on May the 10th, Mother's Day weekend, I left my home in Virginia and drove to Delaware where my mother lives. She has dementia and she lives with my sister. And it was Mother's Day weekend. So I was stopping to make a left to buy some flowers. And as I sat there still, a distracted driver rear-ended me at full speed and hit me so hard, my car malfunctioned in some ways, and I can't really get into the details there, but they pushed me into oncoming traffic. And I was hit a second time at full speed, and my car was pretty much shredded, and my life changed because I had 18 broken bones. And the fire chief, actually, I just met him a couple of weeks back. He said, I'm so happy to see you. He said, because the last time I saw you, I was putting you on a helicopter and I never know if you lived or died. And he said, we had to do this radical extraction to get you out of your vehicle. He said, and I remember leaning over and whispering in your ear. He said, I'm so sorry. This is going to hurt a lot. He said, because you were dying in front of my eyes. I was watching you die. And I said to my crew for the first time in my fire chief, profession, a radical extraction, get her out. And he put me on the helicopter. I spent 26 days in the hospital, and it took me like 6 months to learn to walk again. Now, in the midst of that, my love relationship of 14 years ended. My career imploded. I found myself homeless and needing a place to live. So it doesn't get too much lower than that, right? But I share that story for all the women out there who feel like life just feels like it's a 1-2 punch. Like I couldn't believe how hard life kept getting moment after moment. And then the insurance companies and healthcare bills. I mean, I had $215,000 in bills. I mean, it was an onslaught of, I have PTSD and other traumas from this. But I kept thinking about if I just let my mind run this narrative, right, it was going to be scary. And I don't know how it would come through it. And in July, when my love relationship ended and I had giant bottles of Percocet for all the pain, I thought of just taking them all because I just wanted my soul. It was really my soul saying, I just want love, peace, and joy. And all three of those felt absent, right? And here I was with this giant bottle of pills and all my mind with all the opioids and everything I had else in it. It was just craving love, peace, and joy. And it felt like that was the answer. Permanent love, peace, joy. And just take the bottle of pills. Now, that was my mind. And with this awareness, I knew that's what was happening. So with the power of breath and listening to my soul, I knew that's not what my soul wanted. And that's not who I am. And in these moments with your daughter and with other women, I invite everyone, when you are having these conversations and we are applying our brains to connect, close your eyes. And take several breaths and say, what does my heart have to say about this? What does my soul have to say about this? Because my mind will torture me, right? It will constantly tell me the fearful thing, the painful thing, the memory of the past, the I'm not good enough. You did something bad. You don't have what it takes to come through this. But when you take a breath and you close your eyes, and it really is important to close your eyes and say, what does my soul have to say about this? You're going to get a different message. And there's no way for me personally, right, that I could then ever end my life. It gives you the determination to go forward and pick up the phone and tell somebody, I'm afraid and I'm vulnerable. and somebody needs to come help, right? And so I applied all these techniques in the book, right, to come through this. And every morning setting the intention, it wasn't about my career or my love relationship at that point. It was, today, can I walk to the bathroom instead of using a commode? That was my intention, right? Can I take that breath and say, my intention today is patience with myself. Can I rest? Right? So you get to define extraordinary exactly where you are. And again, it's not about money, title, fame, fortune. Sometimes an extraordinary life is, can I take 2 steps today? Can I do those exercises that are needed? Can I forgive myself? Right? Can I forgive a friend? Can I have the courage to let go of something that's hurting or harming me? Mm. Sometimes it's teeny, teeny, tiny little things. And that in and of itself is extraordinary. And with each tiny little step, you get closer to the thing you want the most. And, you know, my doctors would say to me, how are you healing so fast? How are you able to do these things? I said, because I'm listening to my soul, right? What does my soul need right now? What's 1, 2, 3 things I can do today to move closer? And my soul would guide my mind to focus on healing, to do the work, to get into action, to get the love and support, to practice. And, you know, it took me about 8 months before I could walk without assistance, but I'm good now.
That's an incredible story. I mean, it's just an incredible story. Just the fact that you are so vulnerable and sharing that realness of so much disappointment and brokenness in many ways, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally, right? And in your relationships. And yet, the tenacity and the persistence to know yourself well enough to understand that no matter how hard those waves and how fast those waves were coming at you, you could be still enough in the midst of that to know your soul's desire. So I'm hearing that extraordinary life, it is so important that we learn to listen to our own voice, our own soul, like I was talking about with my daughter. It's one of those things where I want, and you want, women to be empowered to value their voice, to value what it is their soul wants. And we don't need permission or validation or anyone else to say that, yeah, that's what you should have. It doesn't matter if anybody understands, right? And the power that you shared in your story was the power of intention. If our minds, this is such the neuroscience, but behind what you're saying is like a whole different conversation. But if I could just, from my experience and what I've learned, connect with what you're saying for my audience, this is not something that's like, oh, that's a nice idea. No, this is literally a neurological thing that you're practicing. You're choosing to work on alignment, knowing exactly what it is that you want, and then choosing to, throughout the day, start your day and throughout the day, remind yourself, course correct, course correct, course correct. That intention, the awareness and the intention are the 2 greatest keys to that extraordinary life.
It's where your power lies, to guide the mind, and the mind will create what it is focusing on.
And that's like science. It's not woo-woo. Like I was asking you earlier if you'd heard of Dr. Amen. He does brain SPECT scanning, and he does things that talk about, shifting the mind. There's a woman that I've worked with, Dr. Laurel Mellon. She has come up with a system called brain-based health, where she gives you the tools to shift those things in our mind that we just make us redo things over and over. And there's emotional locked circuits in our brain. So what I hear you saying is really developing habits, self-supporting habits.
It's true. And I think of, your essence, heart, soul, self, being, right? It's where your emotion, your personality, your animation comes from. It's where the love, peace, joy, all the positive stuff. And your head, right, is where the logic, reasoning, fear, doubts come from. And this intention of taking a breath, right, to disrupt the brain's automatic flow. If you could think of like heaven and hell within your own body, right, your soul and your heart, when we touch our chest, right, where our pain our emotion lives, that's kind of like heaven, right? Because it wants happiness and joy and love. But our head is kind of like creating this in our own body, hell. And it kind of keeps coming back to this balance in nature. There's night and day, there's right and wrong, there's up and down, there is good and bad, if you will. But to your point of the brain sciences, the practice helps rewire the brain, right? Right? We hear about the 21 days of practicing something, and then it becomes, because we have a current automatic that may or may not be serving us, but 21 days of practice, plus or minus, will rewire that automatic. Now that becomes your new automatic. And what I'm inviting everyone to think about is, but are you listening to your soul, what it truly wants? And before you can even know what you truly want, Gina, most people don't even know who they are. The adjectives that, if you're not exactly sure, if you always think of yourself from the, it's like women getting a compliment. Oh, you look pretty, right? Then what do they immediately do? Oh no, this thing. Oh no, I've gained 5 pounds, right? We always go to this kind of serving negative place. But if we were to tap into who we truly are for ourselves and who we are to others when we are our best and greatest, you can get a list of adjectives, right? So I usually have my clients on the first meeting, right? They usually want to come and create some type of plan to get things done and grow the business and get it right. They're in kind of project management mindset, right? Their mind is trying to get them to somewhere. And I have them do this exercise where I have them call 10 different people and ask them, when you see me being my best and greatest, like what qualities or attributes do I have? And just to sit quietly, and it's very uncomfortable, but have them write them down, right? So you start hearing words like leader and levity and friend and love and compassion, like, because people will tell you your best and greatest qualities. And that is who you are to yourself and others. And if you make a short list of those words and just write them, or do it, like I say in the book, like create yourself a Wordle with all the words they used. But some of the words will come up multiple times, and they are your natural way of being. They're your divine spark, right? We hear about nature, nurture, right? Mm-hmm. I think the nature part is the divine spark. Like when you come out and you're born with your DNA and your gifts, right? You're a beautiful blank slate. But there's things that are truly innate to you. That's your divine spark. These are the attributes and qualities people will describe. And I don't care if you're 60 years old, they're still going to see those beautiful gifts in you, right? That's your divine nature. And then life happens to us and gets on us and in us, that human being piece as well. And we create a story in our head, all the sins and shames and guilts. And that becomes where I will say nurture. People are trying to always heal that, right? Love it out, love us through it and make us feel better. But if you really think about, and you could say when that part shows up, you could tap into your Wordle, right? Just read it. Like, no, that what my head is telling me isn't true, right? Dirty little liar, tricky little liar. Shame on you, head, because that's not who I truly am when I'm my best and my greatest. And when you say those words, it'll put you back to this positive place. And then you can live from that place again, right? So if you know who you are, right, those beautiful attributes, your natural innate way of being, and then you say, this is what I want, you can go create it from that place, right? Create it from your best and greatest self. And putting a bow on the whole thing is, guess what? You're going to have a lot of hard moments in life. Remember, there's night and there's day. The question is, in those journeys, just like my accident and many other things that happened in my life before, you can relate to it as your sad story, the sucky moment, the poor me, the victim, and that I was done to. Or you can look really closely and try to find a gift, because we often grow the most, as you know from doing this, when something's hard. If it's easy, we're not even paying attention. We're just enjoying the goodness of the easy, fun part. But when it breaks, and we've got to go take a look is when we find the gift. Now, you can carry a sad story around you your whole life, right? The bad thing. When I grew up, I was really poor. Dad loved him dearly, was an alcoholic, made a lot of bad choices for himself. There's a lot of things in my life that weren't great. And I carried that around as poor me, my sad little story, until somebody brought to my attention that, well, what if through these hardest moments of your life, that is where your boot camp is? Think of those, whoever's doing anything amazing or extraordinary, let's say in a physical context. Let's say you're a soldier. They run you through a boot camp, and it's really hard, and it hurts like heck. And on the other side of it, you are stronger and a force to be reckoned with. So what if you changed your relationship, that your story is not a sad little story, that you went through these moments that are unique to you? Only you have ever had that journey. But what if it's your power? What if it's your superpower now? And you can do something with that from a place of strength. What are you to do with that journey so as to make a difference for yourself and others? And then how do you do it from your best and greatest place? How do you marry up the sucky drama, right? The sad story, flip it to a boot camp, and then put your best and greatest self with it and go take that gift to the world? Because there are people who need that story, and there are people who are going to relate to you, and you need to give that gift to them.
Yes.
But you need to keep living an extraordinary life and not let that story hold you back. It is gone and over, right? But it is a part of your forever story. But go light it up in a good way and go make a difference for yourself, and find the love, peace, joy that you deserve, even though that event happened to you.
That is so powerful. I love, love, love that. So we have reached our hour, and you have shared so many actionable, practical, and really daily habits that people can do. So you can recap, you can bring us 3 new ones, but let's land the plane with 3 really good starting points for someone to help them start this journey. Obviously, the book is going to be a big part of that journey for someone because, like you said, it's a workbook. They can read it and do the work. Maybe a book club is a great idea. But let's just give me 3 that we can share with the tribe that will get them going.
Great. Take some time to really get in touch with your best and greatest self, who you really are. Make a list of what you want in all facets of your life. And then each morning, right, that first 5 minutes, set those intentions and your 3 things you can do each day to go bring it into your reality, from your soul into your reality. And just the last thing, it's 4, I apologize, but the 4th thing is, know that you're going to get afraid, but stop fighting your fears. They got you to where you are. They've been here to keep you safe. And they're just showing up because they think you're doing something new, and they're trying to protect you. But fall in love with your fears. Thank them for being with you, but let them know you're gone in a different direction and you are choosing to go create this new life. It's okay. Love your fears. Don't fight them.
You used the word flow earlier, and that's that instead of forcing things, flow with it, right?
Yeah, flow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so Diane, I want to thank you so much for bringing so much wisdom and richness and courage and encouragement with your story today. I really want to honor you for taking that journey, facing that journey, understanding that journey, and learning how to communicate it in a way that really can change the world. And I do believe that your mission will be accomplished. So thank you.
Thank you. If I can be of service or in service to anyone who feels stuck or they want to create something in their life that they truly deserve, I'd be honored. And the book it was designed so that everyone could do this themselves if they can't afford a professional coach or whatever. But everyone does deserve an extraordinary life, no matter what your income level, right? If you're a socioeconomic challenge, you should still grab a copy of this book for $20 and do the work, because you deserve an extraordinary life. Everyone does. Everyone does.
And extraordinary is different things to different people. So know what that means for you.
Absolutely. No one can tell you what your journey is to be. Run your own race, follow your own path, and define it every single moment of every single day.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Diane, for joining me today.
Thanks, Gina. It's been wonderful. Thank you for the gift.
So today I've been speaking with Diane Cashin. She is a transformational coach and the author of Squeeze More Life Out of Time, Manage Your Mind, Energy, and Minutes to Live an Extraordinary Life. If you head on over to www.feminineroadmap.com/episode 150, you will find links to connect with Diane, her website, her book, and I do highly encourage you, friends, that this time that you've spent with us today, take some action on it. Don't tuck it away and feel warm and fuzzy, but literally take the baby steps. Have courage. Know that your voice matters. Know that the extraordinary life that you want to live, you can be living in the moments today. It's not something far off in the future. Empower yourself through this conversation, through these resources, getting the support you need, because what's happening to us isn't as important as what's happening in us, as Diane said. So have courage, take the baby step. I trust that you have been touched by this message. And so we ask that you share this message. You share this resource. Don't keep it to yourself. Intend to change the world with what you've learned today. And together, my friends, the world will become a more intentional, better place. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to sharing more inspiration, more power with you every week. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.